Hello all, and it's been way too long. I didn't do a AEW review for, I'm gonna say All Out, but it's not All Out, for whatever the Vegas pay per view was. Can't even remember the name of it now. And then of course I didn't do one for Forbidden Door either, which I probably should have. Both shows were really good. Forbidden Door was pretty awesome. I'm sure most of you know that by now, but just wanted to come on here, do a review for Death Before Dishonor, the first true Tony Khan AEW pay-per-view. There was a lot of stuff on Supercard of Honor that was kind of already there that he really, that he did, but even though, all that stuff. But, that he did but didn't do. And then, of course, was going to talk a little bit, we'll see, I might go on a pretty long rant, about Vince McMahon retiring. We'll talk about all of that. But, I'm going to make you guys wait. I'm going to talk about what I thought was a pretty good pay-per-view. Wouldn't say great pay-per-view. Well, great. Yeah, it was great. It just wasn't awesome. It was the main event probably made it. Nah, I'd say it's pretty good. It's pretty good pay-per-view. All things considered. Had a amazing main event, which I will probably go on a long soliloquy about later. But we had the 0 Hour, which is a pretty cool name for pre-show stuff. So started with Colt Cabana versus Anthony Henry. This was good. Nothing blow away. It was good to see Colt Cabana. He got a pretty good reaction. It looks like Colt Cabana is going to be ROH bound, so there's that. Especially it looks like with the Dark Order now not being a thing anymore. So I think that's a good place for him. I think he works really well on here, so there we go. Then we had the Trustbusters of Ari Daivari and Slim J taking on Shinobi Shadow Squad, which is Cheeseburger and Eli Allysin. This was good. Wasn't I shouldn't say it was good. It was pretty good. Especially for a pre-show match. They had said Daivari was coming. Here he is. He's got kind of I guess he has all this money now, and now he's going to have a crew of wrestlers that he's paid for, Slim J being the first. They went over. It was a pretty good match, nothing blow away, but wasn't horrible. Then we had Brian Cage, Khan, and Toyolona. This was originally supposed to be with Tully Blanchard and Tully Blanchard Enterprises, but I guess Tully Blanchard is gone. They brought in Prince Nana instead, so now we have the Embassy, which probably is a better fit with all of this. This was pretty much just this was good, not great, but it was good. They took on Alex Zayne, Blake Christensen, and Tony Deppen. Alex Zayne is weird in some ways. Like whenever he like sometimes he's really good and sometimes he's just way too sloppy. It was good to see Tony Deppen on here. I know a lot of people thought he would never be in Ring of Honor or ROH after he kind of went off, but apparently he was going off on the Sinclair people, not necessarily Tony Khan. So he was on here. He looked pretty good. Everyone looked good. Everyone got to shine a little bit. So it was a pretty good match. Brian Cage got to look like, Brian Cage. Brian Cage in a six-man is really good. Brian Cage probably in tags is really good because you kind of, not that he has faults per se, but, once you see his shtick, he gets exposed a little bit, so, yeah. And then we had Willow Nightingale taking on Allysin Kay. I thought Allysin Kay did not look very good here. Willow Nightingale, I don't think she's the best as far as, in-ring, but she has a lot of charisma. People really, dig her. I know she was where the area where there was probably a lot of fans that were very familiar with her, so they popped really loud. But usually anywhere she goes, she usually gets a pretty good reaction. She's a great babyface. She has all of those other things, even though she's not like a great worker, that make up for her not being a great worker. So I hope they actually use a lot more of her. I actually like them using her, so there we go. Then we had kind of a weird start, but it made sense eventually. We had the ROH title match. What they said was they flipped. It was supposed to be a dual main event. They had a coin flip, so one match was going to start, the other match would go on last. The ROH title match lost the coin flip, so we had Jonathan Gresham taking on Claudio Castagnoli. This looks to have been Jonathan Gresham's last match with Ring of Honor or AEW. There was something went backstage. A lot of people said it turned into a shouting match. Gresham wasn't happy, which I can kind of understand, to be honest. This didn't go nearly as long as it should have. It was less than 17 minutes. It ended just as it seemed to really get going. The thing with Jonathan Gresham matches is they do need to be long because of his style. And I love Jonathan Gresham, but Jonathan Gresham is short. And the fact of the matter is it's hard for him to be when you're trying to sell a product on TV. I think it's hard for him to be your champion. I think he was a perfect pure champion. And I think why you would make him a world champion is if you were going to have him do something with Lethal, but it doesn't look like that was going to be the case. Lots of other things. Apparently, communication issues, all sorts of stuff. Though people apparently said that Gresham was being difficult anyways because he wasn't happy with everything, which I kind of understand. Seemed like a weird place. Claudio went over, which made sense. Like I said, I wish this had gone closer to 20 minutes. I think this would have been a great match. As it was just a good match. And I think that's very disappointing because I think these two could just gone out there and just absolutely killed it. I went in thinking Gresham might win, just because Claudio beat Zack Sabre Jr. You have Jonathan Gresham beat Claudio, and then Gresham could have taken on Sabre. Sabre beats Gresham, and then you can do Sabre and Bryan Danielson down the road. But that was my thought, but not what we got, so there we go. Then we had the ROH six-man tag team. You had the Righteous, which none of these guys, I believe, were signed, so it wasn't like a surprise how this was going to turn out, versus Dalton Castle and the Boys. This was good. They tried really hard. The crowd did not care. Dalton Castle probably be the only one that had been on TV at all, anytime in the last who knows when. So the crowd, and this was the one thing about this crowd, and I don't mean this as a diss, but it's just the way the crowd was. This was a very, I would say, these were AEW fans that were very WWE-like, in that they popped for the people they knew, they popped for entrances, they popped for moves, but they were also kind of quiet, or so it seemed, though people there said that wasn't necessarily the case, so maybe it was just the way everything was mic'd. I don't know. But they did seem pretty dead for this match, unfortunately. I thought they did go out there and put on a pretty good match. It wasn't great, but it was pretty good. The crowd just wasn't into it. And of course the Boys and Dalton Castle won, so that puts all of the titles now under the AEW ROH umbrella, which is kind of good, so there we go there. Then we had the ROH Pure title match. This, to me, was disappointing, only because it didn't go nearly... I think you could have easily gone 5 more minutes. It would have been fine. They had the crowd throughout most of this match. This match was really, really good, and then it was starting to really pick up. It wasn't your normal Pure title match, in that they didn't use a lot of the Pure title tropes. It was just a match that was going on with Pure rules. I was kind of surprised about that, but it did work. And the promo work that these two did leading up to this match, I expected a lot more out of this. We didn't get a lot more, unfortunately. I will say that Ian and Coleman were great throughout this entire show. Absolutely best commentary team. I think kind of proved it. You kind of seen it when they've been on ROH on AEW TV, but you actually saw it here. And then when they were with William Regal, oh my God, this was just so much fun just to listen to them going on commentary. Didn't really take away from the match, even though it was like going on, it was so great. But yeah, still really good. It just didn't get to that next level, unfortunately. I think they have a lot better match in them. Of course, Daniel Garcia is going to be taking on Daniel Bryan on Dynamite, so there we go there. Then we had the brothers, Roosh, taking on Dragon Lee. This was very good. I think it really depends on how you see Roosh. I don't hate Roosh as much as a lot of people do. I know a lot of people just like really hate him. They nitpick everything about him. And I get it, because sometimes he's super lazy. He was not lazy here. He was in there with his brother, and I also think, he also knew probably he needed a good performance because he's taking on Mox on Dynamite. That will be very interesting to see how, he does, especially when he's going to when he will undoubtedly, be doing the job. But he may be fine doing the job to Mox, so I don't know. But Roosh is like that. But we'll see. It'll be very interesting. But it was very good. Dragon Lee busted his ass, which you would expect. And Roosh was very much Roosh, and you could, all of that. So, very good. Then we had the women's title match. Serena Deeb taking on Mercedes Martinez. This was good, I will say. It was very long. I think it was far longer than it needed to be. They're both very good, and they're both very good technically. But the crowd was very much into Serena Deeb, not so much into Mercedes Martinez. The match built really well. It probably went a little longer than it needed to, and it started off really slow. I think if it started off a little better, it would have been a much better match. But that's not what happened. So, but it's still, it was good. There was nothing bad on this entire show. There was some okay stuff, but there was nothing bad. So, it's still a little disappointing, and the crowd was just didn't seem too much into it. Then we had Samoa Joe taking on Jay Lethal. This was very good. My only really gripe with this match was that they started off with they fight around ringside, but the match doesn't actually start until they get in the ring and they ring the bell. I so hate that. I really do. I'm not a fan of that at all. But that's what they did here. Joe did end up winning, which I think is the right call. Was very fun, very good. The crowd was absolutely into this without question. I think a lot to do with Joe, and they had built it up pretty good. So this was didn't go along, but it was a very good sprint. I think the whole thing probably together went about 15 minutes, though, if you include the out of the before match stuff. Then we had, oh my God, this match. ROH Tag Team Title match, best 2 out of 3 falls match. In the build-up, I wish they had kind of talked about the fact that this was the Briscoes match, but given that the Briscoes did not win this, maybe that's why they didn't really hang on that. Of course, they did announce that the Briscoes have been signed to ROH contracts. Tony Khan in the scrum afterwards was asked about the fact of would we see the Briscoes on TV, and in a roundabout way he said probably not. But who knows? Maybe he just didn't want to say, oh yeah, we're going to have them on TV, and then they're going to show, because he wants them to be surprised on TV, all of those things. This match was awesome. This match, I liked this just as much as the first match they had. Just absolute, they have amazing chemistry together. Another match of the year contender, in my opinion. Just absolutely amazing stuff. Legit match of the year contender. A lot of people thought that the first match would probably win match of the year. Maybe still so. I think that match had much better crowd reaction, where I think this was, like, as far as a match, was a better match. So I would say they were about even in my mind because of that. But they're both just awesome matches. I was never, so the current like crop of like, oh my god, tag team matches, right? So you had like you had the cage match last year at All Out, which I saw live, which was awesome. I liked both of these matches better than that. You had the Bucks versus Paige and Omega, which everyone like absolutely loved from a story point perspective. I didn't love the match as much as a lot of other people did, but it was awesome. Don't get me wrong, from a lot of different perspectives. But it didn't reach that top of the level, like all Japan tag level. As I said, me and Marquis Nightmare Baller, we talked about this the other night, and he said something really, which I'll touch on. But there's that, and then of course the Bucks and the FTR matches, which I thought were great as well, but I didn't think were like these defining tag matches. And then the Bucks versus Golden Lovers, which again I thought were great, but not like that next level great. Both of these matches and you know, the Briscoes are like my favorite tag team probably since the year 2000. I would freely say that. And Markeem said something that is absolutely right. He said that, you know, the Briscoes of all the tag teams out there, the Briscoes are the only ones to consistently have 3 matches that really give you that like all Japan 90s feel from like a tag team perspective. And they've had 3 matches like that. 2 of those matches were with FTR. The other one for me would be the first Ladder War. But those matches, right, give like that type of match where, you know, so this is like, to me, this is like next level stuff. This is something that you definitely should see, go out of your way to see. Like I said, legit to me, match of the year contender, which is hard because there's probably been just as good of stuff in Japan, but because of the clap crowds, it makes it really, really hard. I hate the clap crowds. I hate them, as I think everybody should at this point. And you could see it like Forbidden Door, how much, you know, like when Okada came out, you could see the look on his face of, oh my god, I've missed this so much. And you know that they have missed this so much. I'm sure the fans have missed it just as much, because you can tell stuff will happen when you watch, and they will do things they're not supposed to do. So you can tell that like they're waiting to. So hopefully that gets fixed, because then I think you're right on the money. But I thought this was a very good pay-per-view, and is definitely something that I think everybody should go out for the way to watch. We didn't get any news on a TV deal. I would imagine that this show will go a long way to getting them a TV deal, because they put it on BR Live. I think if they can go, hey, look at the business we did, you know, just putting them on, you know, a little bit on AWTV. If they had their own TV show, they could probably do a little bit better. And so there you go. Supposedly, digitally, they did about 25,000 buys. And so if things were normal, and I don't know if they'd be normal, that means they probably got about 30 to 40,000 buys altogether, maybe closer to 35, maybe 1,000 buys, which would still be very high for ROH. It doesn't sound too impressive until you start looking like against like TNA. TNA has done very few pay-per-view, and going all the way back from Impact to TNA, very few pay-per-views at that level. So it might not seem like a huge rah-rah, but it is impressive in that sense. So it is a way for them to maybe get a TV deal, and we go from there. So now, that said, let's talk about Vincent K. McMahon. Retired. Basically left. Went with his tail between his legs. The rumor being that there is another Wall Street Journal report that's going to come out that is not good. and that Real Sports is doing a story on him that is really, really not good. Probably the Real Sports story. And the reason why I say this is there are a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot, about 3 or 4 people currently associated with Real Sports that have wanted to nail Vince McMahon for a long, long time. When you add in the fact that that whole crew loved Tom DeFord, and Tom DeFord wanted to nail Vince McMahon for a long, long time. So in a lot of ways, they would see this as a gift to the late Tom DeFord that they finally got him. And so I could definitely see them getting something on him. I don't know what it is. I could speculate, but I don't really want to speculate. There's a couple things I think it could be. One of them, I will say, if it's one of them, this would be bigger than WWE and would encompass partners with WWE as well, and I'll say that. It wouldn't surprise me if that's the one it is. But it apparent from the rumors going around, that looks to be what the deal is, and that they were trying to get in front of it before next month when the story comes out. So, all that said, this is my thing. Vince McMahon, I started watching wrestling kind of hardcore watching wrestling, not just like intermediately. Because before, I would watch wrestling, but not like watch wrestling, probably from the time I was 4. And then, I probably started watching wrestling sometime around 7 or 8, right? So, 81, 82. So that's long before Vince McMahon, that's around, right about that, but that'd be before Vince McMahon really went national. And on top of that, I watched Crockett, and I watched World Class, and because I had cable, I could see World Class. I saw Memphis. I saw AWA. Saw a lot of stuff. Now, Vince was always better than AWA. Don't get me wrong there. But Joe Lanza from Voices of Wrestling said something, and he wrote something, and if I put this on Twitter, I'll say this here. Spend your $5, go read what he wrote, because it was, I don't agree with all of it, but I agree with the overall purpose of it, which was Vince McMahon's gone, good riddance. If you really take a look at pro wrestling, and you look at pro wrestling from around the world, especially Mexico and Japan, and it's not like WWE wasn't big in Mexico or Japan, but where you had other things, you can see where it's stronger in some ways in those countries than it is here. If you list, and this is something that I wish every wrestling site would be asked to do, and I know most of them would never be able to do it, which is why I would love to see them do it, is this. Go out, and just name off what you consider the top 10 promotions in the world, right? Because ultimately, you're going to have WWE as number 1. I think everyone, even people that hate, like me, hate WWE, you're going to put them as number 1. Right now, because of the pandemic, you're going to have AEW number 2. Number 3 is going to be New Japan. Number 4, right now, who knows, because of I'm guessing it would probably maybe be Dragon Gate, then CMLL, or the dumpster fire that is CMLL, they shouldn't be that low, or AAA, and then probably Impact, just because they have a TV deal, even though they're owned by, but they kind of have a TV deal. And then, let's see, who am I leaving out? That's probably it. And then, however you want to list everybody else from Noah, All Japan, Stardom, DDT, right? I think that's about 10. Maybe I left somebody out, but you should be able to do that. You should be able to, maybe, if you really follow pro wrestling, off the top of your head. And instead, through this whole thing, we had the owner of arguably either the number 1 or number 2 site, Fightful, come out and say, It won't be a popular opinion, but wrestling would not be where it is today without Vince McMahon. Yeah, it would probably be in a better place without Vince McMahon, for every single one of Jim Cornette's faults. And I hate to even bring up his racist, idiotic, dumbass. And I used to love Jim Cornette. I've got the Midnight Express book, but he is so out of touch right now. But one thing he is absolutely and been absolutely right for a long, long time is the fact that, in fact, before Vince McMahon, wrestling was more popular. Yes, he did not make it more popular. He's actually made it less popular. You can go around. You can look in Memphis. They were pulling in better figures weekly than what Vince weekly in the exact same city than what WWE does for Raw and SmackDown. Weekly, they were doing this. And they weren't the only ones. More people were watching. TV was different, so it's harder. But just from a live perspective, more people were going and watching pro wrestling. So yeah, there's that. There's the fact that, and Joe Lanza brought this up, and he was far harder on it than I am, but basically said, during the since Vince McMahon has owned WWE, honestly, how much of it has really been good, right? You had what, from 85 to 92, okay, all right, so we have that. So you have about 7 years, right? And then you have to wait till what, 98 before it got really good again. Maybe maybe just say 96 to 99, right? And then you have 20 years where it really wasn't all that great. On top of this, so there's a large stretch of his tenure that really wasn't that good. And I absolutely, completely agree with that. So, yeah. And then, so we have all of this, and the whole thing is Vince McMahon found out, rumored forever. I've hinted at it. Other people have hinted at it. Dave Meltzer has hinted at it forever, that Vince might be a sex pest. And come to find out, he was. And all of these people are shocked and surprised that have followed pro wrestling. In some cases, written about pro wrestling for almost 20 years. And they were like, oh my God, look at it. And it was like, we've known this. We just didn't have any proof of it. And now that we have proof of it, and then many of them, they would talk about it, but they really wouldn't talk about it. And to me, the biggest thing was, you had all of these people come out, right? And then we had the last Wall Street Journal thing come out, where it wasn't just Office. It wasn't stuff with the Office and him, promoting, the people he was sleeping with and all of that. No, there was a wrestler that apparently he talked into doing things, and then when she refused to do things the next time, he fired her. And yeah. And so at that point, he had already stepped down as CEO, he's still the main stockholder, so that really doesn't matter. But CEO stopped down, but he was still head of creative. At that point in that time, and I understand people were like, okay, he's got to go. You need to say he's got to go. Not that he's being obnoxious, that he has to go. And to the point of, when you start your review of WWE that he is head of creative of, you say, you know what, Vince McMahon has got to go. We're going to do this review. It's good for our business to do this review, but we're doing this review under protest. Vince McMahon has to go. Everyone should demand that Vince McMahon has to go, and go from there. Don't believe that happened. Didn't see that myself. Maybe there were people out there that did. I don't know, but I didn't see it, because we have a lot of people who cover pro wrestling that only know WWE, and if you take and their minds crumble once you try to get them to not do things WWE way. When you look at when people talk about AEW and they don't understand why AEW does some of the things that they do, and it's because they're not hitting you over the head, because they actually think you're smart enough to actually follow along with the storyline, not to be reminded about the storyline every 15 seconds, like real good TV actually does, where they let you kind of go along and they talk over your head just a little bit, because good writing talks over your head just a smidgen, just a little bit. I know that's still a low bar for a lot of pro wrestling fans, but still, that's the way you do it. That's take a creative writing class, and a basic creative writing class, and you'll understand that. So there we go. But all these sites that basically didn't do that, all of these sites that are shocked and perplexed that this is the case, and it just goes right along the kind. It amazes me that we have all of these sites, all of these people that are basically running these fan sites, and that's what they are, that feel obligated to cover things outside of WWE, and when they do, it shows, and then they get frustrated when people call them out on it, because it's like, well, you guys don't even know what you're doing, and you can't even bother. But you definitely saw that with this. You didn't see enough, in my opinion. You didn't, like, even when Vince McMahon like went away and all of this stuff, and we finally got Dave Meltzer to talk about it, him and Brian, like, it wasn't bad. They were basically talking about like who would take over and the creative and would the two CEO things worked and all of this. But really, and I get, they've talked about Vince McMahon for years, and so they probably don't feel like they need to talk about it a lot. But there was no talk, and there was all of this talk all day about another Wall Street Journal story and the Real Sports story, and there was no talk about that, and it was really sad. However, I'm going to prop the Voices of Wrestling guys again. I would say go spend your money. Listen to their audio about, Vince McMahon finally going away. It's really good. It's very insightful. They have a lot of good points. Don't agree with all of them, but I think they have a lot of good points. I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, hey, maybe it will get better now. And maybe it will. It really depends on what Stephanie does, because anyone that remembers the last time Stephanie had any sort of input and creative, it was shit and it was horrible. So yeah, don't hope that Triple H maybe has a little bit more say than we think he might, but we don't know right now. So we'll see. Should it get better? It should definitely get better. There's no question about that. Kevin Dunn's not gone though yet, so there's that. And there's the whole thing: is Vince really gone, or is he just going to is he gone but is going to basically just not be there and going to still have everything done through his surrogates that are there? That's a possibility as well. So yeah, there's a lot of that. I think the bigger story is still yet to come. I still think it's really sad that we had all these people doing this. Thank you, Vince McMahon. Wrestling wouldn't be where it was today, because I think it's a really sad indictment on a lot of, I hate saying wrestling media, because most of them are not media, they're fan sites, but a lot of those sites that just do a really horrible job of explaining the actual history of pro wrestling and how pro wrestling works, and not the WWE version of pro wrestling. They do a really bad job of that. And to me, if you're online, it's not hard to look up and see what WWE lies about and what they don't lie about. But, I don't know what to tell you. I work with people who know not to talk to me about WWE, because I will start ranting and raving and being like, I really don't watch it, and here's why, and they don't understand, and they're like, well, but that's not what WWE says. And I said, I understand that's not what WWE says, but this is what really happened. And then they're like, oh, this is too much for me, and walk away. So I completely get it. But I feel like if you're reporting, if you're blogging, if you're doing whatever on pro wrestling, for the most part, not everyone, but for the most part, I mean, for example, you look at the scrums, and the scrums are what the scrums are that AEW does. It's really sad that how old is he? The AJ kid, who's like 7, asks better questions than just about everyone else at those scrums. I'm sorry to say that, but that's the truth. He asks pretty much the best questions. and he's probably asking questions that his parents are telling him to ask, and it's sad, and it's just like, dear Lord. Usually, now sometimes you'll have people there that will ask good questions, or they'll wait and they'll ask, questions. Now, I'm saying ask. I'm not saying you have to press Tony Khan. Tony Khan may not want to answer, and he may, talk around the question or whatever, and that happens, and that's fine. But at least ask the question, right? I think that's fair, and I think we don't get enough of that, especially in a company that is notoriously horrible about getting any information out of, as far as nothing, almost nothing comes out of that company that they don't want out. So it's really crazy from that perspective, that once you have him in front of you, you just don't ask the questions, and you ask a lot of I don't know. I don't want to say bad questions, because they're okay for the most part, but there's a lot of questions that aren't asked that should be asked, and it's not like all of these sites get to talk to Tony Khan on a regular basis. So you would think that you would get those sort of things, and you don't get them, and it's really sad. But I've probably ranted about that enough. But Vince McMahon's gone, kind of good. We'll see. We'll see if the product gets better. I hope it gets better. I mean, there's still going to be things about it that I don't necessarily agree with. Ultimately, I think what's going to happen is that this basically gives the other con, the WWE con, basically, yep, go sell it. Go sell it. Go try to sell it to Universal. You would think Universal would want to buy it, depending on, especially given how much money they have already tied up into WWE. So yeah, I would imagine that would be the case, and then they can have everything. They can have SmackDown and the whole bit. So yeah, but anyways, that's it. I'm done. I hope this actually worked. I don't know if it did, but we will see. So with that, I'm out. Later.